Chapter 409 Spirit Experimentation. However, at the very next moment, all of the symbols surged toward Dalu like rivers emptying into an ocean. A black soul ring almost twice as big as a normal soul ring rose from underneath his feet. As it rose, his original 5 soul rings also became much darker. Rah! A ferocious tiger's roar rang out from Dalu's mouth. Rah! Then, another excited tiger roar was heard. Dalu's new black soul ring glowed brightly. His entire body became illusory, and with that, a ray of black emerged from his chest and landed in front of him. 4 huge tiger paws landed on the ground. Wasn't that shadow that large-palmed black tiger? However, it was no longer near the end of its life. Instead, its body had become much stronger. Furthermore, its fur now glowed with a faint, golden light. Streaks of white tiger stripes appeared on its back, and the king symbol on its forehead was much larger. While its body looked illusory and incorporeal, it was otherwise indistinguishable from before. Rah! It roared excitedly once more. The large-palmed black tiger turned around, stood up, and placed its front paws on Dalu's shoulders. Dalu laughed. It worked. As he said that, he grabbed the front 2 paws of the large-palmed black tiger and lifted it up strongly. Its paws landed on his back, and then both human and tiger paused. After Dalu unleashed his white tiger, the fur between its black and white stripes turned black. He slapped forward with his right hand, and in midair, a huge black tiger paw appeared. It smashed down onto the ground, creating a crater a few meters deep in the shape of a tiger's paw. The large-palmed black tiger behind him lowered its head and charged. Dalu and it was synchronized perfectly. He leapt into the air and landed firmly on his back. The forelimbs of the large-palmed black tiger brimmed with strength as it jumped up and down in the plains between the humans and the soul beasts. It was incredibly fast, and Dalu laughed excitedly. Spirit, it really is a spirit. After a momentary calm, the soul masters burst into discussion as excited voices rang out everywhere. The same thing happened on the soul beast's side. Instead of chattering, the many different types of soul beasts roared and grunted. The chill in DTN's eyes disappeared, replaced with an unusual excitement. It had worked. The equal contract between Dalu and this large-palmed black tiger was successful. The large-palmed black tiger was now his replacement for his 6th soul ring. Both humans and soul beasts could see the massive advantage a spirit had over a soul ring. First of all, a spirit could provide a soul skill just like a soul ring. Just now, Dalu's black tiger spirit palm was able to demonstrate the strength of a soul skill. Furthermore, a spirit had consciousness. Right now, it carried Dalu on its back and served as his steed. How majestic was that? Furthermore, this large-palmed black tiger could evidently fight as well. This was way superior to merely possessing a soul ring. Wait a moment, I want to do an experiment. Who are you? Said, as he sent spiritual intent out to Dalu, who had already ridden away. Instantly, the large-palmed black tiger turned around and returned to Who Are You? The large-palmed black tiger lowered its body, and Dalu slid off it and stood in front of Who Are You? Right now, his face was brimming with excitement. He had dared to take part in this experiment not because he trusted Who Are You, but because he didn't want to forego any opportunity that could strengthen him. The first person to do anything would face risks, but Dalu was smart. As the first person in line, Who Are You would do his best to make sure that it went smoothly. Obviously, he was proven right. This spirit, a large-palmed black tiger, was much better than he had expected. Who Are You turned to look at the soul beasts and said, Elder DTN, please come forward. Then, he looked at the human side and invited Elderson forward as well. They were the representatives from the 2 sides. DTN and Elderson's bodies shone, and in the next instant, they were standing next to Who Are You. Who Are You said to DTN, Elder DTN, please verify that this large-palmed black tiger has retained its original consciousness. The body, or carcass, of this large-palmed black tiger still lay there. Next to Dalu stood its spirit. DTN nodded as he looked at the large-palmed black tiger. With just one action, this 20,000-year large-palmed black tiger was able to demonstrate that it had retained its original consciousness to the beast god. It crouched on the ground and it straightened its tail into the air, like a pug wagging its tail to endear itself to the beast god. A deep growl emerged from the mouth of this large-palmed black tiger. Who Are You did not know what it said, but from its spiritual fluctuations, he could guess that it was talking to the beast god. DTN listened for a while before nodding. Then, he lifted his right hand and placed it on Dalu's shoulder. Dalu's body trembled for a bit as he tried to resist, but how could he defy the powerful beast god? Elderson and Who Are You did not intervene to stop DTN from placing his hand on Dalu's shoulder. DTN closed his eyes and sensed quietly. Dalu felt his body going as still as a statue. There was no way for him to move. The large-palmed black tiger next to him looked at him occasionally. Its excitement turned into fear, an innate fear of the beast god. Elderson looked at Who Are You inquisitively, but Who Are You just smiled and nodded at him. The moment the ceremony was completed, he was confident that it had succeeded. DTN did not probe for too long. He retracted his right hand, and the beast god opened his eyes once more. He looked at Who Are You, and his severe expression softened. He nodded at Yuao and said, You have made history. These 4 simple words made Who Are You feel as if a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He replied to DTN, I'm just glad that I didn't let you down. DTN nodded and said, Continue. Let's see what its success rate is like. Who Are You nodded earnestly. The success of a single experiment did not mean anything. If its success rate was only 10%, then no matter how good a spirit was, it would not be very effective. There would be no way for him to introduce it to the masses. Who Are You turned to Dalu and said, Please go back. Dalu looked deep in his eyes and said, Thank you, I owe you one. With that, he leapt into the air, and his large-palmed black tiger did the same, catching him in midair. Together, they turned into a bolt of black lightning as they quickly dashed back to the human side. Dalu was not the only excited one. This large-palmed black tiger was just as excited. It had reached the end of its life, but it managed to live again using another method. Furthermore, it was at the peak of its strength. While its life was interconnected with Dalu's, this fate was much better than death. By tying its fate with Dalu, it could even experience the wonders of the human world. Dalu's success made both humans and soul beasts excited about the experiment. Even the soul beasts that were severely injured felt their hatred for humans decrease. After all, who did not want to live? One's survival instinct was always stronger than the desire for revenge. However, Who Are You still did not choose an injured soul beast for his second experiment. Instead, he chose another old soul beast. From the humans, he chose an outer courtyard student of Shrek Academy again, whose soul power had just reached rank 30. This fusion was exceptionally successful. This time, the entire contract ceremony took less than 2 hours to complete. A thick purple soul ring and a purple jade falcon became this student's spirit. While a purple jade falcon could not be ridden like a large-palmed black tiger, the 2 of them shared a mental bond, which made the student jump around excitedly. The crowd was ignited by the 2 successes. The first thing to change was the emotions of the soul beasts. Their intense enmity dropped visibly, and the soul beasts which were in line now showed signs of anticipation. Who Are You did not stop. He conducted experiments, one after another. His initial successes created a good foundation for his later trials. Not only did it make him more experienced, but he also earned the trust of both humans and soul beasts. As the 2 sides formed their contracts, it was less likely for any problems to occur. However, not all contracts were successful. Among the soul beasts, some of them still tried to resist the humans. After 20 rounds of experimentation, Who Are You failed twice. One of the soul beasts died, as its body was too weak. However, this did not affect the overall results of the spirit experimentation. A success rate of 90% answered many questions. Who Are You's vast spiritual power prevented fatigue from setting in. He continued his experimentations from dawn until night. In between, he rested twice. When night fell, all 100 experiments were completed. Among them, 86 pairs were able to form their contracts successfully. Among the 14 pairs that failed, 6 soul beasts died because they were too weak. The other soul beasts which lived were in pretty bad shape. 2. Who Are You did not end the experiment just like this. He helped the remaining 8 soul beasts that survived form contracts again. This time, 5 succeeded and 3 died. In the end, the success rate stood at 91%. 91 soul masters from Shrek Academy and the original 3 countries of the Douluo continent now possess their own spirits. The experiment could be considered a success, and the results were better than expected. The soul masters with spirits all released their spirits to interact with them and deepen their bond. As the others looked at how excited they were, they could not help but admire them. However, not everyone was happy. The unhappiest bunch were the titled Douluo. Their soul rings were all complete, and they could never possess a spirit. When they saw their juniors with their spirits, how could they not be envious of them? While the experiment was successful, Who are you asked to remain with the soul beasts, standing distinctly apart from the soul masters. The first day of the experiment was a huge success, but it was not the end. They still had to do a lot of statistical research, such as the situation of a fusion between a soul master and a spirit, the amount of spirit power drained, and the number of soul rings that could be formed, among other things. The next question they wanted to investigate was how many spirits a single human could fuse with. Then, they wanted to research if Who are you as equal contract could be done by the soul masters themselves. If they wanted to perfect the spirit system, there were many things for them to do. Of course, Who are you did not have to do all these things personally. Shrek Academy's research in the area of martial souls was ranked first on the entire continent. The many elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion and teachers of the academy had already started their research and data collection. Once soul masters could form equal contracts by themselves, there would be a lot less things for Who are you to do. Who are you hard work for the day had not been wasted. The most obvious change was that the enmity between the humans and the soul beasts was greatly reduced. They were no longer spoiling for a fight, and the Bear Lord had yet to reappear. The success of the spirit experimentation helped to alleviate the unresolved conflict between humans and soul beasts. Even though further experiments were required, they had at least found a direction to work toward. Just like the beast god Ditian had said, Who are you had made history today. As he smiled faintly, Who are you finally closed his eyes tightly and started to meditate. While his spiritual power was strong enough, he was completely drained after today. Elderson stood next to him to protect him while he rested. On the side of the soul beasts, the myriad demon king and the scarlet king stood on either side of him, as well. In the eyes of both humans and soul beasts, Who are you position had been greatly elevated. He was the only one who could currently complete spirit contracts. The people who were the most excited were the soul masters who had already fused with their soul beasts. The signing of the equal contracts meant that they were the first batch of soul masters to possess spirits. As of right now, a spirit was much more useful than a soul ring. Even if they could only possess one spirit, this would greatly increase their strength. Some of them even hoped that the subsequent experiments would fail so that they would be the only ones who possessed spirits. Of course, such a perverted mindset was only shared by a few of them. Many soul beasts spent the night in admiration and regret, particularly those who had reached a bottleneck. This sentiment was shared by the soul masters who lacked the courage to be the first batch of test subjects. The soul masters from Shrek Academy were in a better mood. After all, Who are you came from Shrek Academy. They believed that they still stood a chance to get a spirit in the future. However, the external soul masters were dejected. They could not remain in Shrek City forever. The moment they left, they would never be able to experience a spirit fusion. Obviously, there would be truckloads of soul masters hoping Who are you could help them fuse with spirits. He could barely manage the soul masters from Shrek Academy by himself. At this time, Shrek Academy demonstrated its magnanimity. The elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion indicated that the moment Shrek Academy achieved a breakthrough in spirit research, they would attempt to spread it across the entire continent and not keep it for themselves. The reinforcements all acknowledged this promise. They knew that Shrek Academy would never go back on its word. In the Douluo continent, Shrek's prestige and name were without equal. If they said they would do it, they would do it. If not, they would not even have shared the secret of spirits with everyone in the first place. The vast majority of soul masters understood Shrek Academy's mindset. After all, the conflict between soul masters and soul beasts had become increasingly aggravated. In the Douluo continent, the habitats of all soul beasts, with the exception of the Great Stardo Forest, had been shrinking for several thousand years due to the increase in soul masters and soul engineers. In particular, the development of soul engineers affected even 10-year and 100-year soul beasts. If this continued, what would humans do when they no longer had soul power? At that time, even the soul tools that required soul power would be useless, much less soul masters. The appearance of spirits helped to mitigate this perennial conflict between humans and soul beasts. As long as they could be propagated, it would slow the reduction of soul beasts and give them time to reproduce. Of course, the formation of spirits still needed soul beasts, and very few soul beasts were on the brink of death. Hence, spirits could not completely resolve the conflict between human and soul beasts, but only mitigate it to a certain extent. However, this was a good start. With its spirit research, perhaps Shrek Academy would even be able to obtain more breakthroughs. What if they found a better way to replace soul rings? Before the appearance of spirits, many soul masters would have snorted at this notion. However, the moment spirits appeared, these same soul masters were in awe. The situation became completely different. They became much more confident in Shrek. With the success of his research and experimentation on spirits, Who are you was able to atone for his previous mistakes at Shrek Academy. Furthermore, the more radical elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion, such as Elder Song and Elder Sun, did not even believe that this problem was Who are you's fault. The next morning, as the sky in the distance started to turn white, Who are you woke from his meditation and habitually unleashed his purple demon eyes to start his cultivation. He then surveyed the bodies of the spirits and soul masters and asked them how they felt. Then, he personally inspected the level of coordination between each spirit and soul master, as well as the degree of consciousness of each spirit. After a whole day, he was able to gather a huge amount of data. At night, he invited a few human representatives, as well as the savage beasts who represented the soul beasts. Everyone said Who are you as he bowed to everyone present. After all, these characters were incredibly influential in the entire continent, particularly the beast god Ditian, who was probably the strongest being in the entire Douluo continent. Ditian nodded at Who are you. He was noticeably warmer than before. Who are you continued. Elders, the success rate of the experiment yesterday is delightful. The success rate is above 90%, which indicates that my research has been successful. Today, I conducted even more research and further experiments, which show that the situation is optimistic. Right now, the soul masters and spirits that have fused are very well coordinated, particularly the soul masters whose martial souls share the same element as their spirits. After their fusion, their strength has increased visibly, and their spirits have remained conscious and aware. Two spirits, however, were the exceptions. Earlier on, they both suffered massive brain damage, and in the fusion process, they lost their consciousness. Ditian nodded. He could accept some amount of failure. After all, this was just the beginning. With more experience, he believed that the process could be bettered. Who are you continued. Other than these two soul beasts, the other spirits are in good shape. They can fight according to their own will and can also assist their soul masters to a certain extent. Through my research, I have discovered that for 100-year spirits, they can only give their soul masters a single soul skill. This goes without saying. Furthermore, in the future, they can no longer give their soul masters any more soul skills. However, their demand for their soul masters' spiritual power is the least, and this type of fusion is the most successful. For 1,000-year soul beasts, when they sign their equal contracts with their soul masters, they will need a longer time to fuse. They have higher emotional demands of one another. When the two sides fuse, I can help to coordinate the two sides to a certain extent. If not, the success rate will decrease significantly. Furthermore, these fusions demand more spiritual power from both soul master and soul beast. According to my current studies, it is difficult for a soul master to gain another spirit after having fused with a 1,000-year spirit. Unless their mental cultivation is exceptional, it is not likely for them to experience a second successful fusion. Who are you mentioned the downsides of spirit fusion of his own accord. Both Ditian and Baiji nodded when they heard this. They were satisfied with him. His words were enough to demonstrate the sincerity of his experiment. Who are you continued. When it comes to 10,000-year soul beasts, it will be very hard for them to undergo a spirit fusion. I need to use a lot more of my spiritual power to control their emotions. This is because after a soul beast reaches the 10,000-year threshold, it will become sentient and vastly more intelligent. Its emotions become harder to control. Furthermore, their own spiritual power and strength will increase, and hence, their autonomy will make them reject the contract to a certain extent. When they sign their contracts with soul masters, both sides will require more spiritual power. Furthermore, the pain these soul masters must endure will be beyond the level a normal human can endure. Hence, in the process of completing this pact, the soul masters must demonstrate a very strong will. However, I am certain that unless a soul master has a spiritual type martial soul like me, it is impossible for a soul master to fuse a second time after he or she has fused with a 10,000-year spirit. However, a 1,000-year spirit and a 10,000-year spirit are obviously more useful than a 100-year spirit. Through my conversation with the soul masters and the spirits, I realized that a 1,000-year spirit was two soul skills confused with a soul master. However, after fusion, its first soul skill confused with its soul master as well. In other words, the soul master can use another soul skill, exactly as if he had gained another soul ring. This soul skill can be used by the spirit itself as part of its fighting skills. The other soul skill will be hidden in the spirit's body. If a soul master's cultivation reaches the bottleneck of the next rank, the spirit can unleash its soul skill to be the soul master's next soul ring. The precondition is that the soul master must accept it. From my my perspective, it is highly likely that soul masters will accept it because their spirit can only unleash the soul rings that it gives them. This will further strengthen his spirit and compensate for the disparity between the soul ring and a higher ranked one. At the same time, the higher the rank of that soul ring, the harder it will be to obtain it, and more difficult to find one that is suited for himself. Hence, why doesn't he just use the soul skill the spirit can give him? To many soul masters, this is not a hard choice. When it comes to 10,000 year spirits, they are even more useful for a soul master. First of all, the biggest benefit of a 10,000 year spirit is that they are sentient. While it is harder to fuse with one, once completed, their intelligence will enable them to fuse their own fighting abilities with their soul masters, greatly benefiting the latter. In a fight, the spirit will be part of the soul master's fighting abilities, and that's without it even providing a soul skill. A 10,000 year soul beast, according to its cultivation, can provide between 3 and 4 soul skills for its soul master, who has the option to choose. In comparison, a soul master can only depend on luck when fusing with a soul ring. Furthermore, when one obtains a 10,000 year spirit when one already has 6 rings, one will choose the soul ring the spirit brings along with it when they add a 7th ring. This will ensure that the soul skill will be implanted into the spirit, giving the spirit an additional ability. For soul masters, this is tantamount to attaining a 10,000 year soul ring. A soul master's 7th soul skill is his martial soul true body, which does not carry a soul skill with it. This is something that perplexes us soul masters, especially because of the benefits of a 7th soul ring. By giving the 7th soul skill to one's spirit, this problem will be eliminated. Even if a soul master cannot use the soul skill himself, it will still benefit him greatly. This is equivalent to having 1 extra soul skill. How great is that? Who described it very clearly, and the humans and soul beasts who heard him all nodded. On the soul master's side, many eyes gleamed. These powerful soul masters were all thinking how their disciples' fighting styles would change after they had obtained their spirits. As the first batch of test subjects, they were already ahead of their time. DTN said, these benefits are good. The problem now is, what's the success rate of the soul masters forming these contracts themselves? If we can't resolve this problem, no matter how good spirits are, all they will bring to us soul beasts is more harm. Who nodded and said, I've considered this problem. What I can be sure of now is that if they try to fuse with 100-year soul beasts, the success rate will be similar to mine. However, if they try it with 1,000-year soul beasts or 10,000-year soul beasts, the success rate will drop visibly. However, this may not always be the case. In signing a contract with a soul beast and completing the spirit transformation, a very important point is the spiritual power of the soul master involved. When the soul beast and the soul master are both willing, his spiritual power is extremely important. Hence, there's one situation which is highly beneficial to the spiritual fusion process. Not only can it greatly increase one's chance of success, but it will also benefit the soul master immensely. Oh, there's such a way? What is it? Douluo the body Douluo asked. From his tone right now, he did not treat Huo as his junior, but instead as his equal. Huo said, the soul master has to delay obtaining his next soul ring. Let me give an example. When a 4-ring soul ancestor's soul power reaches rank 50 under normal circumstances, he will try and obtain another soul ring to become a 5-ring soul king, right? When he obtains his soul ring, the most powerful one he can obtain is a 10,000 year soul ring. He can't obtain one that is 20,000 years or more. I won't go into details, but everyone's following me, right? The many powerful humans all nodded. Huo said, so what if he doesn't try and fuse with his soul ring at this moment? What will happen? 10,000 years ago, the Grandmaster of Shrek Academy told us in his research into the 10 core forces of the Soul Master world that soul power will continually accumulate until the Soul Master has obtained his next soul ring, before it will burst out. In other words, if one continues cultivating, one soul power will continually increase, but it won't reveal itself. For many soul masters, they cannot bear such a delay. After all, by obtaining a soul ring, one soul power will increase tremendously, which is also accompanied by an improvement in the quality of the soul master's strength. However, if a soul master does not obtain a soul ring at this moment and continues cultivating, he will not only improve his soul power, but also his spiritual power. For a normal soul master, his spiritual power will increase along with his soul power. The more he cultivates, the more he meditates, the stronger his spiritual power will be. If his soul power can be suppressed for a while, and he is given more time to improve, his spiritual power can fulfill the criteria easily when he fuses with his spirit. At the same time, this kind of training will make a soul master more stable and resilient, traits which are important when it comes to spiritual fusion. The success rate will thus naturally increase. Even without me, the contract can be completed. In an optimal situation, if a 4-ring soul master can increase his soul power to rank 60 before obtaining a spirit, I can guarantee that his success rate, even if it's with a 10,000 year spirit, will be more than 80%. Once it's done, he can obtain 2 10,000 year soul rings, which will allow his strength to increase massively. Douluo nodded non-stop. The conditions that Huo were laying out would definitely be met. In his body sect, there were soul masters who cultivated like this. For some of the more anxious and gung-ho disciples, he would purposely deny them their soul rings so that they could improve their personality. Elder Sun said, your contract seems very difficult. How long will it take the master? Huo said, I've considered this, too. I believe that it's not ideal for everyone to learn it. Once someone knows how to make a contract, a soul master will find it hard to resist the temptation of finding a spirit. They will go and search for soul beasts, and the process of spiritual fusion is extremely difficult. Once it fails, the soul beast will be injured, and the soul master will not escape unscathed, either. It's best for someone like me to facilitate the process as an outsider. This maximizes the success rate and prevents either side from getting hurt. Furthermore, the conductor will also be able to bear a portion of the pressure placed on the soul master. This will make the contract process a lot easier. Elder Sun frowned and said, you are just one person. Will you help everyone? Huo said confidently, of course I can't do it alone. However, I believe that there are some people who are competent enough. This aroused Tian's interest, and he asked Huo, what kind of people? Huo replied, soul masters with spiritual type martial souls like me. Normally, they will cultivate their spiritual power. The more powerful their spiritual power is, the stronger their martial soul be. Hence, in terms of spiritual power, even a 3-ring soul elder will have greater spiritual power than a normal soul emperor. With spiritual type soul masters as the middleman, the chance of success will naturally be higher. Furthermore, after they learn the contract process from me, it will increase their chances even more. While there are not many soul masters with spiritual type martial souls, they are still a significant portion of the population. However, there are only a few spiritual type soul beasts, so it's hard for them to become strong. If we can gather them, I'll train them and guarantee that afterward, the success rate of a spiritual fusion mediated by them will reach 70% or more. The specific success rate will depend on the spiritual cultivation of the soul master. By then, I will have divided them by their cultivation. Those with more powerful spiritual power will help the higher ranked spirits and soul masters, and those with less powerful spiritual power will fuse the 10-year and 100-year spirits with lower ranked soul masters. This will help to increase the chances of success. This makes sense, agreed Douluo promptly. Yuao's words make sense. Sun Zi and I share the same opinion. The contract is rather complicated, and not something that an ordinary soul master can master. Furthermore, as one makes the contract, it will drain one of their spiritual power. With a bunch of people dedicated to facilitating the contract process, the success rate will be higher. Those who possess spiritual type martial souls are the best candidates. Good idea. We can try it once we get back. I have some soul masters like the ones you described in my body sect. Let me tell you now that the body sect will learn from Shrek Academy. Huo said nothing, but smiled faintly. Elder Sun's mouth twitched as he said, old poison, you sure know to benefit yourself. Huo is the only one who can administer the contract. You now plan on learning the skill for yourself. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.